あんまり動かないで。優しくできなくなっちゃう。
Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. It's time for the latest edition of Guess the Banzuke. We are talking the May 2024 rankings today. If you're a Guess the Banzuke player, or want to be this time, keep in mind that the deadline for entering is on Tuesday, April 23rd. Usually it's on a Monday. I guess the Banzuke might be coming out a day later than usual? I'm not sure. Regardless, make sure to get your picks in. Link to the entry form and the Guess the Banzuke helper tool we use here will be in the description as always. Alright, let's get to some predictions. So here you can see we've got the full math for the whole Makuuchi division. I'm just showing it here. We're gonna go piece by piece, but you can click back here towards the start of the video and look at it again if you need to. Alright, here we have the Sanyaku. This one's pretty straightforward. I've already got everybody in place for obviously the Yokozuna, he stays where he's supposed to go. I've already ordered the Ozeki, 11 wins, 10 wins, 8 wins, 5 wins. That's how they're supposed to be. And I put Wakamoto Haru and Abi where they're gonna go. The math here is Asanoyama and Onosato. So number one, if anybody was wondering if Atami Fuji was gonna possibly get the Komusubi slot over Onosato, there's really no way that happens. The full math has Onosato being way ahead of Atami Fuji. Atami Fuji had a chance to earn that spot possibly, despite the math with the win on the last day. He couldn't get it, 8 and 7, Maegashira 1 East, but we'll get to that section later. So now there might be a question of, alright, Asanoyama and Onosato are tied, so which one is going to be Komusubi East and which one's going to be Komusubi West? This will hopefully not come as too much of a surprise to anybody. Asanoyama was in the Joy, he was right in position to get that Komusubi slot with even an 8 and 7 record. He went 9 and 6, he's clearly the best choice. Onosato had an amazing tournament, and even if he had been like 12 and 3 and been mathematically ahead of Asanoyama, I don't think they would have put him ahead of Asanoyama, maybe. But even though in tiebreaker scenarios, they've been tending to go with the better record over whoever started with the higher rank, when you're talking about the Sanyaku, I'm pretty sure they're still doing things a little bit differently than that. The guy who started at 1 West, he can't go up 3 ranks, which is what you would normally expect for a 9 and 6 guy, so they're just going to leave him in front. Onosato, Komusubi 1 West, everything is normal here. Could they switch it? Yes, I would be very surprised if they did though. Now we get to talk about our first kind of interesting situation. So Atami Fuji is +1, he's all by himself, he's gonna be Maegashira 1 East. That's a given, we can leave that there. But now we've got these 3 guys, Hiradeumi, Gonoyama, and Takayasu. They're all tied. What do we do with them? What order do they go in? Before I get to that, really quick, we can count 1, 2, 3, and then with Daisho, 4 guys, and with Maegashira 1 East taken, we've got 1, 2, 3, wow, 3, and 4 slots. That means Tobizaru is going to get bumped back because he's way behind all those guys. He's going to end up at 3 West. Ura and Oho are going to be at Maegashira 4. We'll talk about them as well. Here's how I have them lined up. I've got Daisho moving ahead of all 3 of them. Very briefly, it's because if you've got 3 guys, so Daisho is not going to get bumped down to here or even here. He's not going to go to the end of that line. He's not going to get over demoted in favor of 3 guys who were just barely ahead of him mathematically. But are they going to split those guys up? Like, are they going to put Takayasu at 1 West and then Daisho at 2 East and then the other 2 guys Takayasu was tied with after that? They could, because they can do whatever they want, but I don't think they will. If you've been watching these for a while and you remember a couple bashos ago, I thought Ura was going to be ahead of Wakamoto Haru coming down from Sekiwake. I was wrong about that. I have a feeling they're going to do something similar this time. There's only a half rank difference, and there's no reason not to keep the 3 guys who are tied all lined up in some kind of order. So I think Daisho is a pretty safe bet for Maegashira 1 West. Now as for these 3 guys, I just put them in record order. Why? Because it was simplest to do. They have generally been going with record over rank. The other logical way of doing it would be Hiradeumi, then Gonoyama, then Takayasu. If you saw the instant Banzuke, I actually had them set up differently, like in kind of a funky order, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized Even though they can put these three guys however they want, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it along the lines of what they've been doing most often. Is that a guarantee it's going to be right? Absolutely not. But this seems like the highest odds, even if those odds aren't even 50%. Now, if you're a Guess the Banzuke player, let me point this out. Remember, you get +2 for a bullseye, but you only get +1 if you're on the right rank. So, the important pick here of all three of them is whoever's going to be at Maegashira 3. Here's the reason. If you get the guy at Maegashira 3 right, you get +2. If you get the other two right, okay, well, you get +2 and +2. However, if you get them wrong, then they're just flip-flopped, and you still get +1 and +1. So if you get this guy correct, you're getting at least 4 points. However, if you don't get this guy right, then one of these guys also has to be wrong. So even if you get the other guy in the right spot, you're getting at most +2. So if you're looking at this like, there's three guys that could go in any sort of order, I don't know which one is right, and you really want something to focus on that Maegashira 3 pick. As for Maegashira 4, Oho and Ura, they're going to end up at this rank. It's just a question of which one gets the exact demotion and which one gets over-demoted by a half rank. In this case, I think they're going to do Oho and then Ura. If they want to do Ura a favor, this is actually what they would want to do, because he's going to be a little bit further away from the Sanyaku, and all the Ura fans have a better chance of seeing him do really well. That's not really the reason I'm doing this. That's a very theoretical, tangential possibility. The main reason is Oho had the better record, and I think they're just going to favor that. But you could put these guys in either order. It makes perfect sense. You just have to pick what you think is right. And now we get to the big boy, Takeru Fuji. Where's he going to end up? He's in this block of 4, and there's a rationale for putting him in any of these 4 spots. So what did we do? We kept it pretty basic. Here's the reason. I realize that it might seem like they're going to bump Takeru Fuji up pretty far because they clearly over-promoted Onosato relative to where he quote-unquote should have been. However, we've got to bear in mind, they also bumped Tsurugisho way up. It wasn't just, hey, the kid did really well, so let's favor him and him alone. Gonoyama and Midori Fuji got pushed further down than I expected, but they didn't get over-demoted in the process. They both only took 3 ranked demotions in the end on a 5 and 10 record, so that was actually still pretty good for them. In this situation, if Ura's already going down 3.5 ranks on 6 and 9, or Oho 1.5 on 7 and 8, they're already being over-demoted. He's not going to go to Maegashira 4 and bump them down even further. There's essentially no real chance of that happening. Now in this case, because he was tied with Midori Fuji, I do think they're going to be willing to bump Midori Fuji down an extra half a rank, and they could do the same with Meisei. This could absolutely happen. Takeru Fuji and Meisei could flip-flop. But I brought up Tsurugisho because Onosho has a winning record as well. Because he has a winning record, I think it's much less likely that they're going to take Takeru Fuji and push him up to 5 East and both of those guys back. Or push him up to 5 East and just flip-flop him with Onosho and leave Meisei where he is. I think Onosho is pretty safe at 5 East. It's really a question of what's going to happen with Meisei, Takeru Fuji, and Midori Fuji. This is what I think is going to happen. This seems like the most plausible scenario, but we might be looking at like a 40-30-30 situation. If you put him anywhere in these 4 slots, you have probably a good rationale for doing so, but if you have him above 5 or below 6, I would suggest looking at it again and being sure that's what you think is going to happen. And now we have another big fat tie to deal with. In this case, Matakayumi is ahead, so he's just going to slide over to Maegashira 7 East, no sweat. But what do we do with the other 3? Well, I think we're going to do this. Very simply, I think Kodoshoho goes on top of the tie because he has the winning record. I think Takanosho, despite the worst record, is going to go ahead of Tamawashi because 7 and 8 records, they are going to try and push them down 1 full rank rather than a half rank where they can do so. That's the full logic. You can disagree and it makes perfect sense. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not illogical to do so. I am simply sticking with the theory that a 7 and 8 record, I'm going to default to pushing it down 1 rank and only change that if it looks like there's no other option. That gives us Matakayumi, then Kodoshoho, then Takanosho, and then finally Tamawashi at Maegashira 7 and 8. And now let's look at this pretty big cluster. First of all, we'll forget about Mitoryu. He is not here. He's going to end up down. So look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. Well, 2, 4, 6, 8 ranks. They're going to end up at Maegashira 9 through 12, so Mitoryu is going to end up at Maegashira 13 East. Now let's deal with those 8 guys. First of all, we've got Shodai and Shonen no Umi with Nishikigi. If it was only one of those guys, so let's say Shodai wasn't here, it was just Shonen no Umi and then Nishikigi, I think you could probably leave him here, and it would be fine. However, because there's these 2 guys tied, it's kind of like the way it was with Daisho up top. Are they going to split them around Nishikigi? I don't think so. Remember, last basho, Takayasu ended up a half rank ahead of Hokuto Fuji, even though mathematically he was a half rank behind, and he was a Komusubi dropping low. The only real difference in this case is that Shodai and Shonen no Umi have winning records, and Hokuto Fuji last time was coming off a losing record. But I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. What makes the most sense, and also what makes things a little bit easier for Guess the Banzuke, is just to put Nishikigi over at 9 East. By doing that, Shodai has to come here because then he's only got a half rank promotion, which means this is the only place he can go. He can't go to 10 East. And then Shonen no Umi drops in at 10 East himself. From there, Kinbozan and Sada no Umi have to get bumped back, boink, and then boink, and then it's just a question of who gets pushed ahead between Hokuto Fuji and Ichi Yamamoto. So this is what we've got as a final setup. We've got Nishikigi, like I said, getting that half rank under demotion. I can't remember the last time I saw someone coming out of the Sanyaku get over demoted when it wasn't absolutely required to do so. So I don't think Nishikigi is going to end up at Maegashira 10 East. I don't think there's any way that happens. And because of that, if they keep Shodai and Shonen no Umi together, this is where he should end up. Like I said, Kinbozan and Sada no Umi, they were behind those 3, so they just have to get bumped back a little bit. And then, again, 7-8 record, -1, that gives Hokuto Fuji Maegashira 11 West. Now, if I'm wrong and this time they start giving those 7 and 8 guys a bunch of half-ranked demotions, well, I'm going to screw up a bunch of this. But they haven't really been doing that, so I'm just going to stick with their recent tendencies. So that 2.5, why did I do that? So that's 2.5 ranks down for Hokuto Fuji. Nishiki Fuji, he's the only guy who can really fit into this slot. He gets a half rank over promotion. Everything's good here. And now for the end of the division. Remember, above this, we've got Maegashira 13, and Mitoryu is going to end up at 13 East. So what are we going to do with Oshoma and Chur no Umi? Well, there's a couple different things you can do here. So there's a huge gap here at 15. So one of them has to go to 13 West and one of them goes to 14 East. The rationale for Chur no Umi to go to 13 West is that Oshoma, where he is now, where you see him, mathematically, that's the correct promotion for him. So there's really no reason to over promote him that half a rank when Chur no Umi can just slot back in there and everything's cool. The flip side of that is, well, if they put him back at 13 West, he doesn't get demoted at all. And they have seemed like they're trying to give everybody with a losing record a demotion when they can. And bumping Oshoma up a half a rank is not really a big deal. Also, if you remember a couple bashos ago, Kota Shoho was brought up, looked like he would fit in on the west side of a rank and Onosho on the east perfectly. But they flip-flopped him for no apparent reason, which actually over-demoted Onosho. If they looked at it similarly to that, Oshoma really should be the one at 13 West. And then we've got these final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys to sort out. But before we get to them, let's just look at the prediction first. So first off, even though I realize that what I said kind of leans towards Oshoma being up at 13 West, I just keep having this feeling like it's going to be Chur no Umi, but I will freely acknowledge that this is the one thing in this video that I am not sold on. I'm pretty much sticking with everything else you see here, but that one I might change before I officially enter the competition. I'm really not sure. It's so 50-50 that I have to be sure that my long-term bias of seeing the Makuuchi guys as being the one who should get preference over the Juryo guys coming up isn't getting in the way too much. As for the rest, I have Roga just slotting back in at 15 West. The main reason is that Toki Hayate, Tomokaze, and Takarafuji are all getting either exactly what they should or slightly over-promoted in this situation. I don't think they're going to demote Roga just to make some guys who are coming up from Juryo just barely. Keep in mind that they are at the absolute bottom of the division mathematically. They just squeaked in. I don't think they're gonna demote Roga to pump those guys up a little bit further. Oshoma might be a little different because he went 11-4. He had a really good tournament. They might see that differently. I don't think they're gonna do Toki, Tomokaze, or Takarafuji any favors though. And then Ryuden and Tsurugisho. Back in the day, when they used to give guys who had really terrible records a softer landing, then maybe Tsurugisho would end up in front. But mathematically, Ryuden is a rank ahead of Tsurugisho. Tsurugisho's already getting 2 ranks less of a demotion than he mathematically should, so I don't see any reason why they would push Tsurugisho in front just to be nice. They haven't been doing that kind of thing recently. There's no reason to think they're going to do it now. And that's our Banzuke prediction for May of 2024. Here's the full list. Like I said, Chora Umi and Oshoma, I'm still kind of juggling those two in my head, but everything else I'm pretty confident in. I think what I have here are the most likely outcomes, certainly not at all guaranteed. Anything you disagree with, hey, throw it in the comments. Let me know. Maybe there's something I missed, or maybe it's something where there's just too many options and we're going to look at things very logically and just come to different conclusions. Just remember, check the link in the description, go to the entry page, make sure you get your entry in. We've been hitting 200 entries consistently, let's keep it going. The breakdown for the upcoming basho, I didn't put up a post for it because obviously it's Takeru Fuji, so I'm gonna get back to work on it. You have a great day, and I will see you soon.